This week's episode has it all. Crashes, cops, close calls, bad Teslas, and even a Honda bump. Get ready for your weekly serving of sideswipes and swerves only on Wham Bam Dashcam. Kristana was on her way home from a dental appointment when she noticed the traffic ahead of her had left an opening for an oncoming vehicle in the center turn lane. Even before anything happened, she had a bad feeling. The driver of a Mercury Mariner was waved through the gap, only to be T-boned by a Ford Escape. The impact pushed the Mariner into another driver who'd been waiting to turn onto the road. Kristana gave her contact info to the police so they could request her dashcam video of the collision. Fortunately, she didn't see any serious injuries. Kristana told us this is a textbook example of why you shouldn't assume traffic is clear just because a well-intentioned stranger waves you through. You'll still be held responsible for whatever happens. While passing traffic on I-64, Benjamin noticed a Dodge Challenger come flying up behind him, weaving through traffic. Watch what happened when the driver tried cutting in front of a pickup in the travel lane. The Challenger clipped the front of the pickup, spinning it into Benjamin's Honda Accord and sending him skidding sideways down the interstate. Thankfully, he was able to regain control and maneuver to the shoulder. The driver of the Challenger fled the scene, and with no license plates to speak of, they were never located. Benjamin told us that this time, the Honda was the one that got bumped. In the chaos, the pickup was also struck by a Dodge Charger, wrecking the front end. Benjamin asked us to remind everyone to drive safely. This submitter was driving fast and having fun with a yellow Corvette when another car blew past him, then cut him off in the passing lane. Unfortunately, that driver didn't know that he'd been followed by another car. Another pair of headlights coming up behind the submitter belonged to a cop car, and the speeder was quickly pulled over. Gotta love that instant justice. Connor was headed back to school after lunch when he watched a Tesla ahead of him drive through a yellow light and get T-boned by the driver of a turning SUV. Connor stayed and gave the police his dashcam footage, and they gave him a note for his teacher to explain his tardiness, which his teacher thought was fake until he called the officer and found out it was quite real. This may shock you, but that actually wasn't this week's Tesla behaving badly. Don't worry, it's coming up. This submitter, who goes by the nickname Wally, was taking a friend home from work when he lost control while going around a corner on a wet road, sliding into the back of a Chevy. Wally called the police non-emergency number while his friend walked home. He then called them again, twice, and then 911, and even after over 2 hours, nobody came to take a report. After another hour, a tow truck came to take Wally's car away. He gave his contact info to the Chevy owner, but then he never heard from them. His insurance claim is still pending. Gary was driving home when he suddenly encountered the driver of an oncoming SUV attempting to pass another vehicle and headed straight for him. Gary quickly slammed the brakes and hit the horn, and he's thankful the drivers behind him stopped. The SUV driver also stopped, then got back behind the other car. Laurel was driving to work when the driver of a white van blew through a stop sign and T-boned her Chevy Spark. The Spark's side airbags deployed, protecting Laurel from any serious injuries. The van driver admitted fault after checking on her. Unfortunately, the Spark was totaled in the collision. Dee Dee was taking his daughter home after dropping her car off for service when they witnessed a large truck jackknife on the other side of the road. Dee Dee didn't stop as there were no other vehicles involved. When he drove back the other way 10 minutes later, the truck was gone as though nothing had happened. Alex admits that what happened in this video was his own fault. Alex was taking his brother to a medical appointment on a snowy day in Romania. When traffic in front of him stopped, he slid straight ahead after applying the brakes. To avoid a collision, Alex steered off the road, barely missing a tree. Moments later, the same thing happened to another driver. When some road workers stopped to help, Alex helped them push the other car out, and then they pushed his car out as well. His car was undamaged, but he was shaken up. He didn't tell us if his brother made it to his appointment. Aaron was driving to a show when a Mercedes pulled out in front of him and stopped in the middle of the road. Aaron slammed on his brakes before T-boning the Mercedes. A bystander called 911, but thankfully, nobody was injured. The Mercedes driver was found completely at fault. Okay, I promised. Katrina was leaving her mom's house and ended up behind a Tesla at a traffic light. When the left turn arrow turned green and traffic started moving, so did the Tesla.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
The Tesla driver swerved around a Volkswagen as they ran the red light, then kept going like everything was fine. Cameron was headed home from work. As an express lane ended on his left, traffic ahead of him suddenly stopped for merging vehicles. Cameron didn't have time to stop, so he swerved into the express lane instead. Unfortunately, two vehicles behind him collided. Even though his footage doesn't show the collision, he gave them copies so they could show their insurance providers the situation that had caused the accident. Angelo was driving on a rainy night. A car pulled out in front of a pickup truck, which hit its driver's side fender. Angelo saw as he drove past that the pickup's airbags had deployed. Kendra was driving behind a semi-truck when she watched an older man in an SUV make a right on red and start turning in front of the truck.
What are you doing, truck? Car? What in the world?
The trucker honked and the SUV driver stopped, and both the trucker and Kendra were forced to invade the other lane to get around him. Then the SUV driver honked back as though the semi-driver had been in the wrong. Nathan was waiting for his fast food order when he watched a woman in a Toyota Sienna back into an SUV in the parking lot. A woman was sitting in the SUV when the bump happened, and Nathan says he just watched everything unfold while enjoying his food. This submitter experienced a double hit and run. After a Chevy pickup rammed into his Ford Focus, our submitter got out and spoke with the driver. Then the driver took off, speeding and using oncoming lanes to try to get away. At one point, he turned right from the left lane, striking a BMW. He then continued to run with the BMW in pursuit. Our submitter called the police and they asked him to stop following the pickup. They told him they won't investigate any leads until after he's had the damage to his car evaluated. This submitter was approaching a roundabout on his way to pick up his brother from work. Suddenly, he watched a white SUV T-bone a black car that was already in the roundabout. Our submitter suspects the SUV driver hit the gas pedal instead of the brake by mistake. He stopped and gave a copy of his dashcam video to the driver of the black car after picking up his brother. Ralph was waiting to turn left in his Toyota Corolla. Suddenly, he was rear-ended by another vehicle. The impact forced him into oncoming traffic where he hit another vehicle before ending up on the sidewalk. Our submitter told us the driver who'd hit him had a suspended license and she was arrested when the police arrived. Fernando was driving his Renault in Colombia when he watched a Mazda driver pull into traffic in front of a box truck. The involved drivers pulled over and waited for police to respond. Okay, it's been way too long since we last showed a Honda bump on this channel. Charlie had left his Subaru WRX in a parking garage while visiting a shopping center and, well, roll the jingle.
Jump in! Honda!
The driver of the Honda then left, making this a hit and run. Charlie called the police, and they tracked down the Honda owner. Between Charlie's dashcam footage, the paint left on his car, and 2 notes left by witnesses, he had all the evidence he needed to prove what had happened. Shout out to the 2 witnesses for their help.